For that sharp, this doesn't. I can get it, but whoever comes in the podium,
can you please move like here?
I'll move once.
That's a big one, man.
No problem. Bakhathi. Ayisongithuma.
I'm still the captain of the ship. May we sit down and proceed? Thank you. We now proceed to the remarks by political parties, and let me tell you that I would like to inform you that everything that's happening here has been recorded, so we won't be taking any resolutions. However, there'll be a committee that will be appointed and will have a session with Honorable Speaker of Free State Legislature, Mayor Honorable Zanele Sifuba, to deal with the issues that will be raised today. So all of you will be sent transcripts of the issues that are going to be raised by the speakers from the political parties. Time allocation will be as followed. VF Plus will be given 6 minutes. EFF will be given 12 minutes. Democratic Alliance will be given 8 minutes. African National Congress will be given 20 minutes. Time allocation, as agreed, will be as follows. FF Plus will be given 6 minutes. EFF will be given 12 minutes. DA will be given 16 minutes. ANC will be given 20 minutes. The first speaker from VF Plus is Honorable Shizen. I hope I pronounced the name correctly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is Crazon du Plessis. Firstly, I would thank you all for coming and just be part of the discussion that's taking place in order to develop our youth. I think what happened today is a learning curve for everyone, just to understand that we need to communicate better. We cannot come on the morning of a meeting or a sitting to actually then change a program. For instance, the people at the back didn't even know the program was changed. I do believe that problem could have also been avoided if our speaker did speak up and just informed everyone about that. So just as a starting point, I would like to say that we need to communicate better. We won't be able to develop or empower our youth if we can't even communicate with each other. But alas, there are a few issues that I would like to just raise today. Firstly, it's education. So each of them will obviously have a few suggestions and just explanations on why we feel so strongly about it. The government needs to offer mother tongue education up to the highest possible level. It is statistically proven that children whom are educated in their mother tongue just do better in school. We need to rethink school subsidies and rather subsidize learners than subsidize the school. Just think about the current COVID-19 pandemic and the children with comorbidities that need to come or need to be homeschooled in this time, but the parents just weren't financially ready to do that. We as a nation need to have high standards of education that is internationally competitive. Therefore, the provincial and the national government must prioritize early childhood development as this forms part of the basis of a child's education. Lastly, the government must prohibit all forms of marches and protest actions near schools to ensure that all our children are safe and uninterrupted during their education. The second thing is the advancing of entrepreneurial skills. It is important to advance the entrepreneurial skills of our youth, seeing as the youth of South Africa is the future. We need to ensure that they are equipped for the enormous task, as we can see.
There's a hand. There's a hand at the back.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It's Mbulelo Mchilebe from Fezile Dabi. I would like to know if an honorable member would like to take a question on education.
Questions are not allowed, Honorable Member.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Seeing as the youth are the future of South Africa, we need to ensure that they are equipped for the enormous task that is growing the economy and creating jobs. New businesses don't only create more jobs, but introduce new ideas that solve problems in better ways. Entrepreneurships also make the marketplace more competitive so that outdated thinking is challenged and doesn't restrain society from growing and developing. To make this happen, however, labour legislation must be amended so as to promote job creation while still maintaining fair labour practices. The third aspect is health. We need to terminate the process of implementing NHI and focus on upgrading our public healthcare infrastructure. We also need to start appointing our own doctors, capable doctors and nurses, irrespective of the color of their skin or race, to address our health shortcomings instead of relying on Cuba to combat our deficit. This will not be sustainable. As we've seen during this pandemic, the public sector and the private sector, however, can work together for the betterment of South Africa. We need to establish a mutual beneficial partnership between the private and the public medical service providers, always. The last thing, and I believe that this is something our youth is struggling with the most, is the social cohesion. We will never have social cohesion if we do not start celebrating the unity in our diversity. We need to promote nation building by recognizing communities, languages, and cultural rights. We need equal rights for minorities. Consistent actions must be taken against hate speech, irrespective of who and what you are. This must be dealt with. We need equal rights and opportunities for all. The last thing that I would like to conclude is by addressing my fellow youth members that are sitting here today. The provincial government has heard, well, from my side, but after a few minutes, the other political party side and all the other association, what we need from them. But we need to come together as a collective, and we need to stand up and fight for our rights and our future in this province, Free State, and specifically in South Africa.
You've got 1 minute.
We need to have a better future, not just for us, but for the youth of the future. I thank you.
No discussions. The second speaker will be from the EFF, which is Honorable Sonwabile Dwaba. Honorable Sonwabile Dwaba.
Is that right?
Go off up.
You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Greetings to the Speaker, greetings to the leadership of the Economic Freedom Fighters, greetings to honorable members present today, and all the young people around the province. I want to express my sincerest gratitude to those that laid a foundation for those that look like me to be able to stand in this room today. We appreciate the class of Tsietsi Mashinini who understood that the anti-black and oppressive system of apartheid would do everything and anything in its power to ensure that people like me remain in the trenches. It is very alarming that the very same class of 76 who are now in government find it so easy to inflict violence by deploying SAPS and the anti-black military to deal with black people fighting for basic services. We witnessed this in Fees Must Fall, where SAPS was deployed to deal with students for demanding free education that was promised to them. We also saw this in Marikana, where 34 miners were gunned down. We also saw this here in the Free State with Andries Tatane, who was brutally murdered by the South African Police Service. We hear parliamentarians talk to us about social cohesion as some abstract concept, which in its simplest definition means the willingness of members of society to cooperate with each other in order to prosper. Yet, however, we sit amongst racist apologists of the Democratic Alliance here in the Free State and Free State Legislature, who defend against the removal of colonial symbols, as that one of Christian Divet and the window pails in the Free State Legislature. All of this is happening in 2020. And the ANC defended the DA because even themselves, they're singing for their supper. What does social cohesion mean for a woman in Welkom who is scared to go to the shop because she might not come back alive? What does social cohesion mean for the widow of Andries Tatane? What does social cohesion mean to all those that are languishing in poverty with no water and electricity? What does social cohesion mean to all the 1,000 unemployed graduates? The reality is that the sitting government, which is also known as the Liberation Movement of South Africa, has neglected their fiduciary duty and responsibility to keep the interests of the people of the Free State. The unemployment rate for the first quarter in the Free State reached a new level of 38.4%, 8% from increase from the fourth quarter, and second highest in the country. And this, mind you, is happening before COVID-19. So the excuse that they like to use, say, COVID-19, the first quarter was before COVID-19. One of the legacies of apartheid is the dispossession and special arrangement of our country that has not been addressed to this day. The establishment of Bantustans and homelands was at the core of the segregation agenda. Biko also recognizes this special arrangement of the Nationalist Party on how they want to entrench tribal segregation and advance the divide and conquer of Verwoerd. Let us be clear on one thing. COVID-19 brought no new problems, but it has simply highlighted the ones we've stated above, with inclusion of socio-economic ones such as health and education. At the core of this is that we are landless. And any attempt to restore the dignity of our people, as we did in Moidrai, in Metsimaholo, reactionaries and anti-black forces of the Democratic Alliance and the ANC rejected that. What COVID-19 has highlighted is how far we are as a province. We're the premier and some of the executives who consider WhatsApp and social media as part of the fourth industrial revolution. Similar to the Deputy President Didi Mabuza and how he exposed himself in the National Assembly on the topic. We're so far behind from our counterparts that we don't even know what the fourth industrial revolution is. And in moving to AI, which is artificial intelligence, it is very tragic that we send students to China and only to abandon them when they go there. As young activists, we call for the decommodification of both basic and higher education. We call for a decolonized education system that will ensure that Uso Nwabile will be able to learn in his home language, will learn in a curriculum that is Afrocentric, because the reality is that now, when I learn accounting, I do it in English, and the only language I learn in my home language is isiXhosa. But when you find Krizan, she will study accounting in Afrikaans. So those disparities remain today. We need to do away with the whole private and public schooling system, as it is very exclusionary. We need to automate the job application process and move from the archaic Z83 that government is still using, and then they claim to understand fourth industrial revolution. We want to challenge MEC Makalo, not only as a member of the executive, but as a young person in advancing young people. The Premier and the MEC, they spoke on economic zones to create jobs for young people. We need to be clear that EPWP is not a job. That thing is not a job. We need to do more in challenging the private sector and ensuring that capital comes to the people. I want to send a stern message to the old guard here in the province and in government. The day young people unite, the day young people put their differences aside, you will feel our wrath.
30 seconds.
During Fees Must Fall, We showed our potential on what we can do when mobilized and united, even though you contaminated our movement, as McBride stated in a sworn affidavit, to spy on young people. Allow young people to govern. Allow young people to lead. Izwe lethu.
Your time is up, Honorable Sonwabile. That was Honorable Sonwabile. We're moving now to the third speaker, which is from the DA, Honorable Shelton. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yes, 4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Honourable Speaker of the Legislature, Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition in the Legislature, Dr. Roy Jankelson, to all our special guests, viewers and listeners, welcome, amohetswe. Honourable Speaker, as the jobs bloodbath in South Africa sets in like the midnight sky, we continue to lose a generation of young people to hopelessness because of the lack of economic development and opportunity in the Free State. Our youth serve as the foot soldiers in the battle against poverty. The youth are often the most vulnerable individuals in our communities, as they are exposed to substance abuse, crime, and acts of physical violence. The youth of the Free State have been left to drown in depression, as our graduates from the Free State are on the streets in South Africa and begging for jobs. Honourable Speaker, the Free State has a problem of many private colleges marketing stale courses for non-existing jobs to our uninformed youth. These youth and their families then erroneously believe that these courses will guarantee them a job, unaware that companies no longer require those skills. Honourable Speaker, the reason for this is because our schools do not teach students how to do taxes, budgeting, or finance. Our schools also don't teach scholars computer coding or emergency medical training. Our schools don't teach scholars how to draft cover letters or resumes. Our schools do not teach us how to live sustainably and within our means. And so, Honourable Speaker, our education system has indeed failed us. We cannot tackle the fourth industrial revolution if our education system itself is not revolutionized. Honourable Speaker, it is not government's duty to create jobs, but it is government's duty to create an environment which is conducive towards attracting investment and through that create jobs. Whilst the DA are working tirelessly to improve the lives of Free Staters, the ANC and their cohorts continue to work like a cancerous disease in hindering those who wish to make real progress. The DA has long called for the expansion of support incentives for youth-owned businesses and cooperatives. Similarly, the DA has called for an employment tax incentive and other youth wage subsidies to stimulate the demand for businesses to procure youth labourers. The DA has even called for targeted support for micro-entrepreneurs, specifically in the informal sector. One of the most effective mechanisms of ensuring skills transfers is through the implementation of a voluntary civic service. This will provide our youth with some experience from which they can be absorbed into the workplace. These are just some of the measures that allow the youth in the DA-run Western Cape to benefit from policies which have been tried and tested. And allow our youth the opportunity to procure jobs and break free from BE legislation which has had shackles over South Africa in our historic past. Now, Speaker, in preparing for my delivery today, I attempted to familiarise myself with the ANC Youth League strategies for economic development in the Free State. Unfortunately, what I found under the website of www.ancyouthlleague or ancyl.org.za was an error which read, "This page isn't working. The problem continues. Contact the site owner."
Order, honourable members.
Honourable Speaker, it's not just this page which isn't working. Our youth are not working. Honourable Speaker, It is only the DA-run government that can adequately equip our youth with the entrepreneurial skills which they require to enter the jobs market. The DA believes that the opportunity is the vehicle through which all South Africans can be empowered to live dignified lives, to pursue their dreams,
Honourable Shelton, your time is up.
their full potential. This belief
Honourable Shelton,
vision
your time is up.
of an open and democratic society for all. I think.
We will now have Honourable Thabang Liu from the African National Congress.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. With more and more youth looking into entrepreneurship, there are a lot of challenges in this sector. I want to highlight two of the objectives of the NYP 2020. One of them, NYP 2020. One of them is to consolidate and integrate youth development into the mainstream of government policy programs and national budget. The second one, to build the capacity of young people to enable them to take charge of their own well-being by building their assets and realizing their potential. Honourable Speaker, there's an agreement between economists, business experts and policymakers that small, medium enterprise and businesses are economic growth drivers. The SME sector that is healthy contributes highly to country's economy by generating higher production, capacities, creating more job opportunities, introducing entrepreneurship and innovative skills, and increasing exports. Youth-owned businesses are a vital contributor to the country's economy and are considered as a vehicle for unemployment reduction, as it has been estimated that they provide employment to about 60% of the labor force, and given that the formal sector continues to shed jobs. The country's economy is faced with difficult times, as it is pounded with domestic and global challenges. The pandemic has not made it any easier either. This feeling embodies extensive worries for the fortunes of the economy of South Africa. This calls for creative and bold actions relating to the country's options for the development of the economy. Under the correct situation, the strong SME community has the ability to be a transformational and a dynamic force. Unfortunately, this is not what we're experiencing in South Africa, Madam Speaker. The current state of affairs of SMEs appears to be that as much as they are striving to contribute to the economy of the country by creating jobs and alleviating poverty, it seems that the red tape has a negative impact on their success. The aspects that are mostly frustrating to young people that own businesses are as follows: municipal issues, SARS inefficiencies, regulations, and labor laws. In accordance with the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Report 2020, South Africa is behind the other less developing countries when it comes to entrepreneurial activities. This can partly be blamed on the legacy of apartheid, due to the fact that apartheid government never supported the development of SMEs. The entrepreneurial activity rate is very low for a nation that is still developing. To dwell on apartheid and the injustices of the past will not solve anything though. The SME failure rate is as high as 63% in the first 2 years of trading due to the following challenges: access to finance, appalling skill shortage in South Africa, which makes it impossible to attract skilled talent.
1 minute.
Compliance with all requirements relating to the legislation of the country, and access to markets. The need for entrepreneurship education and training facilities for entrepreneurial activities with the stimulation of entrepreneurial activities and performance as the main focus is definitely in existence. Education is an important factor in advancing long-term employment and economic growth from an economic perspective. Remedial actions need to be taken to avoid the failure of SMEs. Among other things, the necessity for administration to produce an allowing legal structure enabling access to advice, information, enhancing procurement from small businesses, as well as improving access to finance and reasonable infrastructure. The lack of policy harmony generates a mind-baffling amount of red tape, confusion, and barriers for young people who own businesses, who are starting and running and growing their businesses. The National Development Plan's goal of small business creating 90% of jobs by
Honorable
2030
Tabang, your time is
will
up.
be stillborn unless this vital segment of the country is properly understood. Thank you, Honorable.
I'll now call upon Honorable Pema Masube from the EFF. Yellow ball.
Speaker cannot create it. Speaker's
What? A lot of things.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to greet the House at large. I'm very thankful for this opportunity. Some of us, we didn't even know such things. That's hard. Thank you very much. So mine is here.
Order, honorable members. What order are you rising on? But you can't be howling while someone is on the floor.
And it's intimidating. I don't even know if it's because it's a woman who's standing
Honorable Pema.
Can you please
Honorable
call,
Pema.
Can you please call them to
May
order?
I address Honorable Pema? Honorable Pema, when someone is speaking, you take a seat.
Thank you.
Honorable members, I won't tolerate such behavior in the House. When someone is speaking, you listen and you listen very attentively. That kind of behavior is not allowed here. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would first like to pay a tribute to those who perished fighting for their liberation. Now, this quote of Frantz Fanon, that each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. It's up to us as youth. Mine is here, Wena Mutsamaiso Msebetsi. As the youth of today, we must draw inspiration from the current fight of those who came before us, have mounted generation after generation against the superior firepower of the colonists. But today, our government is the oppressor to its people. It is sad because 20 years after the attainment of formal political freedom, the black people of South Africa still live in absolute mass poverty. We are landless. Their children have no productive future. We are mistreated and we are looked down upon a sea of wealth. The post-1994 government has weakened the capacity to provide services, drive economic growth and development. The government had intended to distribute 30% of land by 2014. But in 2012, only 8% had been redistributed. Black people working on farms remain slaves. They are denied basic rights. The street hawkers should be allocated trading infrastructure in all cities by municipalities. Police harassment and disposition of the goods traded by hawkers should be illegalized, as these are people who sustain their lives through selling basic goods and services. The mighty EFF will develop a model that will provide sustainable enterprises finance and development without requiring shortages from previously disadvantaged individuals and youth who do not own anything as surety, but have workable and bright ideas and innovation that can make business sense.
Your time is
but
up,
not
Honorable
without a land.
Pema.
No land, no parliament.
Let me call upon now Honorable, I'm still the one talking, honorable members. I'd like to call upon now Honorable Malei Petoka from the DA.
Greetings, honorable members. This is Malei Petoka. As we celebrate and commemorate the Youth Month, it is important that we stress upon important youth-related issues such as education and social cohesion. Our country as a whole has been faced with tremendous educational challenges throughout the years. It is important that we identify and deal with such challenges so as to have a better and more inclusive education system. Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. With such problems dealt with, we can positively achieve social cohesion as a community. Hundreds of billions of rands are allocated for basic education beginning of each year, but corruption stands in the way of progress as not all these funds reach the initial purpose. The government identifies 80% of the schools in the country as poor and under quintiles 1 and 3 categories, which do not pay school fees. This is indeed a good initiative on paper. However, our government fails to make a success of such an initiative as schools fail to deliver education with equity and quality. Each public school is allocated a certain budget each year to make teaching and learning effective, but the majority of such schools, these funds are received long overdue, sometimes not at all. Learners do not get stationery in time. The feeding schemes start functioning only later during the year. There's a high shortage of textbooks and for most of the year and sometimes all year. Yet these schools are identified for the poor. How are the children expected to produce quality results, yet they are hungry, with limited study resources and with no stationery? Nor how are the teachers expected to deliver quality education with no resources? Classrooms are crowded, which is unconstitutional given the fact that the constitutional ratio is 1 teacher per 25 learners. The classrooms are in bad conditions, and these conditions are depressing even for the teachers to work in. Sanitation is not prioritized in public schools, which compromises our learners' health. How is it that learners in our quintiles 1 to 3 are expected to perform like those in wealthy schools? Honorable Speaker, it is indeed disappointing to find ourselves in these conditions after 26 years of democracy in the country. It is high time that our people start opting for a better, anti-corrupt and quality education system like that is provided by the DA.
Your time is up, Honorable Malei.
In Western Cape. Thank you.
I'd like to call upon Honorable Zamukuhle Sikhosana from African National Congress.
Let me first start by greeting the speaker. Greet
Mekadija, and all the honorable members. I'm not going to be long. I'm just going to be very, very short. It's very cold and we all need to get home early. A wise man once said, if a country does not take care of its youth, it does not have a future. I am Zamogutless Kosana, but you can call me Honorable Czar. I am going to talk about the stimulation of the economy, and I've got a few points here that will help the economy in terms of stimulation. I'll start with access, or let me say proximity to raw materials, adequate infrastructure, political stability, and prioritizing township economy. In those words, I mean the money can circulate 10 times better within the township before it goes out. I'm going to talk about, well, actually, I am talking about the role of land in stimulating the economy. We use land as a habitat. It is also used for cultural and religious purposes. We throw parties, other people bati bahlabela madlozi. We celebrate, we do a lot of things. It is also used for agricultural purposes. In agriculture, activities may include planting for commercial and mainstream. When I'm talking about commercial, I'm talking about small-scale farming, and when I'm talking about mainstream, I'm talking about large-scale farming. When you preamble, you highlight the relation to the means of a nation. Well, sometime during the week when I was busy preparing my things, I came across the word migratory labor system. This system made us accept and get used to the fact that we will never own, we will be forever consumers. The system was established purposely to make us landless, to make us slaves of the land owners. The economy remains in the hand of the minority just because we are deprived of land. We have been forced to even buy the little things that we can be able to plant in our own garden. Slow transfer of land from devious thieves to the rightful owners is delaying radical economic transformation. The limited access to the land for the minority is perpetuating
1 minute, Honorable Czar.
the intolerant white monopoly system of slavery, oppression, and devious posture. This is what the Free State Province has done to stimulate its economy. Somewhere here in Bloemfontein, we have the Naval Hill. It has the statue of Mr. Nelson Mandela. Isn't that great? It also shows the perfect venue of the whole of Bloemfontein. You can see the beautiful places, animals, and at night you can see the stars and the moon. It's so beautiful. It is stated that there are 150,000 unemployed young people that are neither in training or education here in the Free State. Bloemfontein has also established educational infrastructure, a well-known university, and many training institutions. The mining industry is the biggest contributor.
Your time is up, Honorable
to the Free
Zamo.
State gross domestic product.
Your
and also
time
the
is up,
biggest
Honorable
employer
Zamo.
in the product. I'm 16 years of age.
May you kindly stop howling, Honorable Zar. Take your seat. Honorable members, Honorable Sizwe, may you please respect the House? I thank you. I would like to call upon now Honorable Patience Dibate from EFF.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, members of the House. As you speak, 3 minutes is small time, but I'll try to include everything. I'm going to speak on participatory democracy. Democracy, including participatory, is a crucial part of any emancipation future and seeks to challenge and overcome inequality. Because democracy is necessary as both as a means to get here, but also as an end to itself. Genuine democracy holds much potential in creating more egalitarian and just economic, political, and social systems by empowering people's voices to rise above powerful economic and political elites. In a country like South Africa, where men have openly declared war on women, when women have to continuously validate who they are, where young women have to continuously fight for space, even when their qualifications speak for them, where young women have to fight for their survival, we are far from realizing democratic participation. While more and better, 240 women since
what's your point of order?
That's fine.
Yes.
When they come with a spelling.
Honorable member, you
Speaker.
can't address
No.
other honorable members as a cabal.
No, but Speaker.
Honorable
Speaker.
members.
No.
Honorable members.
If
we are going to allow the speaker on the floor to speak. Honorable members. Honorable members. I said we are going to allow the speaker on the floor to finish. I'm not taking your order. Please lower your hand. Thank you.
Speaker, when a member coughs and people...
Honorable members, I'm the one who is driving here.
Thank you, Mshaid. Speaker, when a member coughs and people say corona...
I'm not going to take your order.
This thing
Please
of COVID-19,
lower your hand.
it is not a joke,
Thank you.
Speaker. This thing of COVID-19 is not a joke. So when you stigmatize when people cough, it cannot be a joke that, especially as young leaders, that the member on the podium coughed and people come and say corona. You can't make such, because you're stigmatizing the entire thing of which we've been fighting against, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. I'm not taking your point of orders. Ma'am, may you kindly proceed.
Like I was saying, Speaker, we are far from realizing democratic participation. As you can see in the House, the level of patriarchy that intimidates women on the podium. It has only been 30 days later since the murder of George Floyd. And since then, 240 women have been murdered and 4,500 women have been raped in South Africa since the 25th of May, 2020, which can only tell you the state of affairs that we find ourselves in as women in this country. While more and better democracy might be desired, good. Today, much is working against it. Women in the country are far from experiencing any democracy. We need to do better as the people, as the judiciary, and as the government. And most importantly, we need men of this country to do better. With the current approach that we find ourselves in this province, just recently we have a case of a young girl that was raped, a 17-year-old Lena in Kharib. That girl was raped by a policeman. After receiving bail, that same policeman reported for duty. This tells you the kind of the current approach we find ourselves in this country. Speaker, when we speak of women participation, and especially in a democratic South Africa, we need to question ourselves that, are we really saying women in this country are participating actively? Are they allowed that space to even participate actively? I don't have more to say, Speaker. Actually, let me just stop here.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let me call upon honorable members. I'm not going to tolerate that behavior. I really am not going to tolerate that. Let me call upon Honorable Nomayeza Bakamela from the DA.
It's Bakamela, Speaker. Thank you,
sorry
Madam
for
Speaker.
that.
It is said we should shape the future before it shapes us. Honorable members, let me reintroduce myself. I'm Nomaiza Bakhamela, and I'm representing the DA Youth. Let me first engage you on the fourth industrial revolution. The way we live and work is changing in a pace we've never seen before in history. While there have been changes in the fourth industrial revolution, Madam Speaker, let me place a question. Can young people really emancipate themselves through the fourth industrial revolution? Here we are talking about young people who happen to be living in deep rural areas. Even now, they can't be reached in those areas. We are talking about the very same young people who are living below the poverty line, who they now don't have anything to do with their lives. We are talking about the very same young people who form part of the 30.1% of the unemployed youth in the country. Madam Speaker, fourth industrial revolution is a dream possible enough to come true only if we had a reliable government. Madam Speaker, one of the main positive effects of the fourth industrial revolution is increased human productivity with technology like artificial intelligence, which professional lives will be able to make smart choices better than before. The DA believes that innovation and creativity is key, and creating opportunities for young people and contributing to the economy is very important. Underneath the multi-layered system of the fourth industrial technologies, which is the primary source of data, which the very same DA is calling for data for all, for young people. The fourth industrial revolution is to be a success, following if we actually grant the technology skills in South Africa. We need to upskill our young people. We know our brothers and sisters, they are very naturally talented. They are talented by nature. As we speak now during the corona pandemic, the fourth industrial revolution is indeed the fatal point of the current economic narrative in South Africa, not to even mention within the province. Madam Speaker, young people of the Free State were once promised a radical transformation. But just to quote, even today, after 26 years of democracy, I don't believe anyone can say they've witnessed that. Even if you can actually look within our communities, it's very sad. Now that we are even in the corona pandemic. But just to indulge you, the young people of this province have been forgotten. The young people of this province are not taken seriously. But anyhow, I believe as young people, we have actually disgraced, or just to say we've disappointed the 1976 generation who fought gallantly for this freedom, who fought gallantly for this democracy and opportunity. Young people of this province are not given an opportunity to actually get the platform, get the chance to create jobs out there through the fourth industrial revolution. Madam Speaker, we are the foundation of this province. If a young person does not work in the Free State, the whole province will not work. If young people are left behind in this province, the whole province will remain stagnant.
Your time is up, Honorable Bakhamela.
I thank you.
That was Honorable Bakhamela. Let me call upon Honorable Yamkela Memela from the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, we take to sit today after just a day after celebrating the anniversary of the founding of the Freedom Charter. It has been through the Freedom Charter that the formation of students, COSAS adopted, was the first organization to adopt the Freedom Charter. But all the gains and the fights done by the 1976 generation and the Freedom Charter, the DA seeks to show and prevail that they are still far behind. They are not tracked in time, or they are not building to have a social cohesion, a government or the country. You find the member of the DA saying that they have progressive policies in the Western Cape that are for the betterment of our people. When you critique those policies, you find that they only benefit their white counterparts, and the vast black majority keeps to be sidelined from those benefits of that province. We cannot allow this house to degenerate just because of an element of proximity and being of a background that was advantage from the reigns of the apartheid. But that is not my speech on the case while I'm here, Honorable Speaker. The solutions that the country is faced with are not new, and they have been there and old situations that have been created by the apartheid system. You find that a matriculant exam question paper or a learner question paper is written in 2 languages, in Afrikaans and in English. You find that our own indigenous language have been excluded and undermined in the process of all this. Then we'll apprehend that our white counterparts are brilliant than us, which is fallacious and a misleading fact, because these people have their exam papers interpreted in their own language. When they do not understand in English, they just go back to Afrikaans and write and progress in their terms of academic excellence. So we find it contradicting that after 26 years, the ANC, even the government, does not shift or try to fix this policy. We have noted that Angie Motshekga and his department, they are running out of ideas. We as young people, we are ready to lead, to take over, and to show this administration what it needs and what it calls for young people to take over. You find, coronavirus has proven that we are all equal under this system or circumstance. But now you find that in our education sector, the department supports more saving the academic year than saving the lives of our people. You find that they are procuring tenders that are going to fumigate classrooms, which this money should have been redirected to a cause, to say that take learners to a camp, test them there, and let them study to save an academic year and save life all in once. But you find a system where the government will prioritize more of fumigating classes and isolating, because the fumigation does not simply say that we have prevented the virus from contacting or affecting students in our classrooms, but it's simply saying that for this short period of time after fumigation, there will be no virus. So we are then calling for the government to say, don't fumigate classes, don't give us screeners and everything. Take us to camp, test us once, then let academic year be saved and lives be saved in general. We are a country that is so ashamed of its own indigenous languages. This makes us to be kept behind and lose sight of the time. A population of 13 million students who cannot understand exactly.
Your time is up, Honorable Memela. We would now have honorable members. Do you want to go outside? We would now have Honorable Tshepang Mohapi from the DA.
Honorable Speaker, the leader of the opposition party in the Free State Legislature, as a young black South African, I feel obligated to remind the House the purpose of this debate, that it is indeed not just about commemorating the events of this month. It is a debate about the situation we face daily in our democratic country. I'm moved to share the words of Helen Suzan, and I quote, "It is the answers, not the questions, that are embarrassing," close quote. It is indeed the answer that are embarrassing when we ask them what happened to our fathers in Marikana who were fighting for me and my fellow brother and sister to have a better health facilities, better education, who have been arrested to the state capture saga, What happened to our grandmothers, mothers and sisters who lost their life on the queue, chairs and beds of the hospitals? Honorable Speaker, allow me to remind this House that it is Nelson Mandela who said, and I quote, "Poverty is not an accident like slavery and apartheid. It is a man-made and can be removed by the actions of human beings." We have seen this when the youth of 1976 stood tall and sacrificed their life. They believed they were doing so for the greater good of South Africa, for democracy, education, and fair opportunity. If they would see the government of South Africa today, they would cringe in their graves because this government is no longer selfless. Instead, it turns against its people and the young people of this country. Allow me, the chair of this House, to remind our government that delivering of quality health care is a constitutional obligation in South Africa. I cannot ignore the fact that many of the problems in South Africa healthcare system can be traced back to apartheid period, in which healthcare system was highly fragmented with discriminatory effect. But let's be honest, after 26 years of democracy, are we still blaming apartheid? Because a young female medical student from the University of Free State was almost a victim of rape in Pelenomi Hospital, bearing in mind that this issue is not for the first time happening in that hospital. Are we still blaming apartheid? Few months ago, a Zimbabwean woman was forced to birth standing in Mamelodi Hospital in Gauteng. Honorable Chair, are we still blaming apartheid after a man in Limpopo was stranded after a death of his pregnant wife and unborn baby in hospital because the hospital there cannot transfer her to Polokwane due to the lack of ambulances? Huge efforts have been made to improve the quality of healthcare delivered in South Africa since 1994 election, but several issues have been raised by the public regarding the public institution. Amongst the many, the following issues are still in forefront. The prolonged waiting time because of shortage of human resources, poor hygiene and poor infection control measures, increased legitimate...
Honorable Member, your time is up. Please take your seat.
Can you please allow me to address it?
No. May you please take your seat. That was Honorable Tshepa Mohapi. I would like to call upon Honorable Vangile Makanya from the ANC.
Honorable Speaker, members of the House, all protocol observed. Honorable Speaker, the objective of this Parliament should be very clear, is that young people demand change and want opportunities. These inputs must bring about that change. It's change in policies and creating a paradigm shift in terms of the outcomes. We call upon you to ensure that these changes happen. Now, let's pass that one and come to the gist of the matter. Industrialization. Industrialization is not just a word spoken. Industrialization talks about creating, developing industries, and our government system currently in local government is not model for that. The system is model for tenderpreneurs. There's no platform for industrialization. And if we are if we're meant to create jobs, the municipality doesn't have the muscle to create jobs for everyone. The structures that are there to ensure that people who want to be industrialized are supported, we don't have them in our various districts. It's limited to Bloemfontein or Johannesburg. These structures, if we have to look at them, we have to look at policies and access. At the moment, the structures that are alive in terms of supporting youth is the municipality structure, but also it's not mainstream structures like your central supply chain procurement. It's under LED. The mainstream aspect of trade doesn't cater much for youth. If you are going to progress, it's either you should be well established because you have a 90-10 or 80-20 system. And when we talk about the 80-20 system, which allocates a certain amount or number to youth or women, it's still not enough. There are no exceptions because everything has to go through tender processes, and tender bidding processes is adjudicated by supply chain or some certain committee. But the only focus then is to get the product out. So behind the issue of empowerment, it is not central to the objectivity of the evaluation of that adjudication. Now, the municipality must have or create youth empowerment policies. This must not just be a political talk. And these also should be enshrined in your acts like your MAFE and supply chain procurement management. That's where the reform needs to happen. If we're serious about youth empowerment, those are the policies we have to look at, check if they're addressing enough in terms of youth development. Youth empowerment doesn't necessarily mean that the youth should get anything for free. It implies that the environment must be conducive. For instance, let's talk about a procurement for a certain value, let's say 100 to 200K to 200,000 or below. Why can't we put a provision to say such work is preserved for youth? Then we'll create a mechanism which ensures that youth is provided with to have a developing seed to develop themselves. The youth is not saying, again, we want things for free or things done for us. The youth is saying we are capable, provide an environment that is conducive enough to express our abilities, create a platform that will give us sustainable projections in terms of our productivity. Then this is where the issue of entrepreneurship boils down to. As an entrepreneur, for you to work, you need resources. So let's say a certain threshold, a certain quota, it's purely and certainly for women, a certain value is allocated for women. So by so saying, we're not discriminating men, but we are trying to create an environment where all can have an equal opportunity.
Your time is
besides
up,
the fact
Honorable
of competitive
Vangile.
bidding.
Let me call upon Honorable Morena Mili Joseph from the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Les Brown once said, you must tell yourself no matter how hard it is or how hard it gets, I'm going to make it. Critics to the House at large and to the protocol observed. I am Ranami Joseph, a youth rep under Democratic Alliance. I therefore stand before all of you today because I will be talking about advancing of entrepreneurial skills. Madam Speaker, many of the Free State young people need advanced linguistic, intercultural entrepreneurial skills. Technology will continue to change the world in ways we cannot imagine. So the ability to continue to learn and to innovate will become crucial factors for unemployability. Fellow young South Africans, di e dumela hore batjha ba tshwanetse ho fumana dithupello hore ba tle ba khone ho rupella batjha ba bang. Jwalo ka COVID-19 re patetse, di e dumela hore batjha ba lokela ho nyollwa ditjhelete hore dikgwebo tsa bona di se ke di a putlama le hore moruo wa naha o se ka putlama le ona. Batjha ba lokela ho fumantsha dikgwebo tsa bona ditjhelete tse le horeng ha di tlo kgona ho South Africa batjha ba sa sebetse ke 30.1%. Ha re bua ka dipalopalo tsa batjha ba entseng dikopo tsa ditjhelete tsa dikgwebo tse nyane ho NYDA ba 5,000 sehleng sena sa sewa sa COVID-19, empa batjha ba thusitswe ba 227 fela. Batjha ba sa thuswang bona re reng ka bona. Ho bolela menyetla mongata hore dikgwebo tse nyane di ka putlama. Ha dikgwebo tse nyane di putlama, moruo lona o tlo putlama. Ke mo go tlo fumanang diphephetso tse tshwana le batjha ba tsubang dithethefatsi, dipeto, dipolao, di eketseha. Di e dumelana le sena. Di e dumela hore batjha ba lokela ho itshwarela ka matsoho ho bula menyetla ya mesebetsi le ho thusa batjha ho ntshetsa dikgwebo tsa bona pele, e leng mosebetsi wa NYDA. NYDA ha e tlameha ho fella mo ka ho thusa batjha, e tlameha ho thusa batjha ho ingodisa ho SIPC.
1 minute.
SIPC le yona ha e tlameha ho fella mo, e tlameha ho thusa batjha Re ikamahanya le di-agency tse tshwanang le SMME le di-STIA e leng boramatlole. Metsaneng ya rona dikgwebo tse nyane di a putlama. A se ka ho rata ha bona mara di putlama. Ke ho hloka ditshehetso ho tswa ho baokamedi ba rona. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the DA youth call upon the youth across South Africa to join us standing up against demanding a better today and tomorrow. I thank you.
Let me call the last speaker from the ANC, which is Honorable Thabo Mofokeng.
Ke a leboha motsamaisi wa dipuisano. Mokgatlo wa batjha wa ANC o nrome kwano ho tlo qetella fela dintlheng tsa bona tse ba seng ba buile ka tsona. Me pele ke qala ke kopa fela ho quote mane ho Comrade Solomon Mahlangu when he said, "Tell my people I love them and that they must continue the fight. My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom." Ha qetella re aluta continue. His blood indeed, and the blood of many other real freedom fighters, and I mean, Speaker, real freedom fighters, not these ones that are decorated in red. His blood and the real freedom fighters have nourished the tree that beared the fruits of political freedom. But the question we ask today is whose blood will nourish the tree that will bear fruits of economic freedom in our lifetime? We meet here today on the battle cry, economic freedom in our lifetime, still hopeless, but confident about the future. We are confident about the future because we believe that the old have declared the war, and it is us, the youth, who must fight and die. We are the youth and the generation that will claim the land, as Tumanoko once said, and I quote, "We must first take charge of the state, stabilize it, and then redistribute the wealth of our country to our people," close quote. We are shocked by the DA and the FF Plus, who speaks about economic development and says nothing about the land that was forcefully taken from our forefathers. And they continue to work it and continue to benefit from the money that is supposed to be benefiting the black majority that was disadvantaged. Speaker, we must indicate that unlike the Democratic Alliance and the Freedom Front Plus, we didn't rent members. The ANC lives with its people and has first-hand experience of the struggles of our people. That is why we believe in government of the people by the people, not government by minority that we see in the Western Cape by DA. Free State ANC-led government is doing exceptionally well in terms of taking young people to school. And we want to urge the executive that it must continue to contain hope of young people by ensuring that they respond radically on the unemployment of graduates, to be specific. MEC Radisha, we believe that we can improve provincial revenue by investing in massive infrastructure development. We propose to the Free State government that you should consider investing in the infrastructure development, particularly by building student villages, to ensure that the money that we invest as government in higher education circulates within the coffers of government. In simple terms, if you check our private student accommodation, you would find that they make out of the government money.
Honorable Mufokeng, your time is up.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you very much. Please take your seat. That concludes the item of presentations. Honorable members, we now proceed to item number 7 on the order paper, whereby we will get reflections by Honorable G. Brown.
Honourable Speaker of the Free State Legislature, Mayor Zanele Sifuba, Honourable Members of the Provincial Legislature, Honourable Speaker of the Youth Parliament today, Honourable Members of the Youth Parliament today, ladies and gentlemen, youth at large. What a beautiful, robust and wonderful day we had. And I think that as youth, you should continue with your progressive discussions, but turn them into actions to advocate change. I've learned so much from you today. Let me remind you that I'm also an 80s baby. I was born in the 1980s, yes, Generation X, just before some of you millennials. But to get back to the business of today, the province, unfortunately, with the somber news, is likely to see negative growth rates of 9.1% this year due to corona and other challenges that we're experiencing in the province, and an upward trajectory next year in 2021 of 2.2%. It's the most recent data from IHS Toolkit. And the only sector that has been seeing positive growth this year is agriculture at 4.3%. Apart from the global pandemic that we are facing, and based on the discussions that we've had today, the collective still shows that South African youth are faced with generational, gender, racial, economic, socio-economic, and inequality adversities. Today, it has been clear that these matters have not been addressed with the disruptions, and I'm using the word disruptions because you youth like that word disruptions, with the disruptions that it requires. Let us be reminded that the latest statistics show that 40% of the youth in our country, 40% of the population in our country is youth. You are the future of our country. And this then says the sacrifice of the youth of 1976 requires us, those leaders who are currently in government, and you to disrupt the system. Today's Youth Parliament displays the brilliance of our democracy and the strength of our South African Constitution. In times of fear, young honourable members, we have to bring a position to unite youth in this country, and we have to come together with joint purpose, and you displayed that very, very well today. We have to motivate and inspire our nation and the young people of the future. Thank you once again for this opportunity, but let me go into some of the resolutions that I've picked up today and how we intend to take it forward. And part of these declarations that I've jotted down will go to the Executive Committee through the Honourable Speaker and her team, and then hopefully that this youth will establish some committees to robustly engage government moving forward on some of the matters that you've raised. On economic transformation, it is already in place that any contract above 30 million, 30% should be set aside for youth, women, people living with disabilities, rural enterprises and informal settlements or local companies. That has already been promulgated in the Triple PFA in 2017. And we have imposed that as a framework of Treasury to ensure that every department through their tender systems, any tender above 30 million has to have that framework. We spoke a little bit about NYDA and its partnerships. I think we can come back to the youth of this parliament to be able to explain the detail in terms of the number and individuals. 5 million has been set aside for an innovation hub for this Free State provincial government, and largely that should impact youth in the 4IR and the IA economies. National departments such as Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Rural Development and Small Business Development have direct youth programs to obtain land, to make land economically viable. Bring in those business plans, let us assist you and let us help you ensure that you've got a viable and quality business plan to be able to take that forward. We've got youth programs in IDC, NEF, CIFA, TISA, and other organizations of the state to be able to advance youth in the economy. But let us have those discussions. I think, again, communication is critical in order for youth to be empowered in terms of what it is that government is bringing to young people of South Africa. Free State Provincial Treasury has developed a framework that ensured 73% of our COVID procurement was from Free State businesses. And I can tell you positively, 30% of that were to youth-owned enterprises. It equates to 83 million rand. 83 million rand of COVID-related funding or procurement was to youth-owned enterprises in this province. If you want to disrupt the system, let's hold banks and private sector to also adhere to the incorporation of youth companies in their preferential procurement. And we need to ensure that their policies through a legislature like this, where you youth are going to assist us to ensure legislation is changed, allow private sector to be held accountable too. I know that all we do as Treasury, what we try and do is hold our suppliers, those who supply government like Vodacom, your big corporates, to be accountable to drive socio-economic goals. But we have to ensure transformation and developmental policies are in place through private sector and designated groups. Destia and Treasury have programs and officials that will assist you with financial advice and financial freedom programs. I think as youth, it's something that you really, really have to invest in, is trying to be financially liberated. Knowing your role as youth companies in pricing, economies of scale, business acumen, and not to be taken advantage of by monopolies or consortiums or conglomerates in your supply chain distribution businesses. It can be done through Destia's consumer support programs. Company registration costs 280 Rand, and your company will be registered in 48 hours. It used to be 2 weeks, it's now 48 hours. That is the progressiveness of the government at large to try and push business processes in the country. Factories are available in Botshabelo and Putarichaba, and those of you who need space, we can incentivize your businesses, but put together plans, put together business plans, and let's make sure it's quality business plans. SEZ applications, the DTI can support you, and we can also assist you there with your business plans for the SEZ. We have a database of young people in business in the province through Destia. Continue to push your teams and those people in your constituencies to go onto that database. And there is also a database of young unemployed graduates in the Free State through FSTDI, and that then we're trying to link up private sector to be able to have a database of unemployed graduates in the province. On land, the Department of Rural Development has incentives for youth ownership on land, and your role, once again, is to develop those programs, not only to acquire the land, but also to ensure sustainability and economic viability of that land that is in place. I've seen how 10% of land was distributed to black people in the Free State, and now we're left with 3 because we didn't know how to turn that land into economic viability. We need to be able to balance that. On governance and administration, we've got youth advisors, a youth advisor in the Premier's office. We've got youth managers or representatives in every single department of this province. They should integrate all programs for youth in different sectors and departments in the province. 36% of representation of youth in different government departments and in municipalities. We need to review that number. That number was a 2017 number. So I think that may have changed, but we will look into it and we will review that percentage of how many youth are employed by provincial government. So as we take about your declarations today to the Executive Council, We're going to integrate that into our budgeting and annual performance plans. But I want to ask you and ask you to continue to debate the following. What is the future of us young South Africans? And it's something I mentioned in Youth Parliament yesterday. We are living in times where we face discussions of a new world order. Deutsche Bank and the World Economic Forum, their research houses predict the following, that the future will require a more streamlined workforce with much focus on productivity, industrialization and mechanization. I want you to take note of this because the future of work is going to change. 30% of national parliaments across the world will be led by women. In South Africa, our President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, targets 50% in his cabinet, and in this Free State cabinet we also have 50% of women or more. What does this mean for the LGBTQI community, and how would you be recognized in terms of gender placement in any workforce? And that is some questions that we have to debate on and discuss on. It also includes further disaggregation of designated groups, women, people living with disabilities, etc. How do we then bring that also into the workforce and allow for people in the rural environments to deal with the migration patterns that we have due to work? These have to form part of our legislations, and we need to robustly engage that, bring that to such a parliament and be able to declare that as legislation. 3/4 of the world population will own a bank account. But how do we hold the financial institutions accountable? Those are the ones who are taking care of our bank accounts. We need to be able to guide that process going forward, going into the future, and that is why we've called for a state bank in South Africa. Digital currency is predicted to be the dominant currency, such as the pronouncement in China on gold and cryptocurrencies. Methods of trade has already changed. We're doing everything online, eBay, Takealot and others. So there's going to be more reliance on wholesale, on distribution, on logistics, opposed to retail. So we wouldn't necessarily go into the malls and do shopping there. We do things online. So the method of shopping in malls might change in the future. And that then talks to a hybrid workforce in the retail sectors. Stronger focus on the environment, so larger revenues for government, for non-compliance to environmental regulations. And I think that industrialization will continue to be dominant, so the future for young people are in engineering, robotics, financial sector, call centers, and ad hoc consulting. Now, value chains will start from farm to fork, but the marketing, buying, selling process will be very rare where two people will meet. It will be done online. So your skills and job specifications and your capacity and the method of doing things, despite what we see in history, is going to change in the future, and you as youth have to predict how to deal with that going into the future. So you need to be dynamic young people, you need to be resilient, and you need to be adaptable to change. So what do we have to do? And in my closing, youth of the Free State have to have a youth economic growth and development strategy. Free State government has a Free State growth and development strategy. Deploy a young, youthful economic growth and development strategy that talks and encompasses what you see the future might hold for young people in this province. And it needs to be holistic, a balance of main economic issues and socio-economic goals. Capacity building. Who am I? What do I want to achieve? You know, one educated person in a family could bring that entire family out of poverty. And you might be tired of capacity building training. I know that we've heard that so many times, but you have to align yourself to current systems, current changes, and you must remain to be relevant. Target ownership and control of the economy, young people. Ownership and control of production. Ownership and control of industrialization. And if you are not in business, work hard to be in a decision-making position, not only in the public sector, but in the private sector too. Once you are in a decision-making position, you can challenge your political advocacies to align with your transformation and developmental goals that you need in any form or shape in organization that you're in. Land, obtaining assets is one part of financial freedom. Leveraging off your assets is another part, to gear yourself in order to build additional wealth. But you must be able to ensure that you are able to make that land or that property economically viable. DBSA Land Bank, Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery, as well as Rural Development can assist you with those interventions. Youth today is calling for 50% of procurement to youth-owned companies. It's not unattainable, young people, but we should hold private sector to account too, because the purse of government is only probably about 12% of the GDP of the Free State, whereas largely in the other sectors, they control the money flow in this economy. So we should hold the private sector accountable to ensure youth is embraced in preferential procurement in the private sector. 4IR and AI, get ahead of it. We will help you. Some of us don't know. In cabinet, in systems, we don't know. But let us get ahead of it. We need you to build plans, to put up ideas and guide us. Those of you who studied abroad and you know about this better than us, bring that to us. And
Thank you, Honorable Brown, but your time is up.
Thank you. I just want to say, Aluta Continua, you are the future. Thank you very much.
That was Honorable G. Brown. We're now going to have a vote of thanks by Honorable Ntombizanele Sifuba.
Thank you very much. I don't intend to hold you here any longer. The reason I thought I should do this myself is because I think it's necessary that I should make a commitment to say, let us have a way forward. We said when we were talking to the whips, here as we are speaking, there are recordings. Everything we've said, there's going to be a transcript. And what we need to do, the whips from different parties, we must come together. And I am making that commitment here to say I will avail myself to say let us get all these inputs that are here, that are progressive, to be able to say what is going to be our program of action, so that we can be able to find a way and monitor it. And be able to say next year when we come, we must not just have this ceremonial thing every year to say it's June month, it's youth month, let's go and have a parliament, and thereafter, then what? We must be able to say we were here the previous year, this is what we said, and this is how we are going to move forward. So I'm making that commitment today to say I am available for the engagement by the youth of this province, irrespective of political affiliation, as long as it is something that is going to build our communities and empower the youth moving forward. There is something that prompted me to act as I was sitting there, that was presented here, that there is a policeman in the area of Harib who has raped a young girl, a 17-year-old young girl, and seemingly nothing was done. The person was able, although he was arrested, he came back and go back to work. I immediately contacted the MEC for Police, Roads and Transport, and in his response, he is saying to me that the member was placed on forced leave. The police who has raped a young girl, he was forced on leave whilst waiting for finalization of suspension process. And he was issued with a notice of intent to suspend him. And he submitted the representation and it will be finalized today. I'm not sure if it's today or maybe yesterday, because today is Saturday. I think he forwarded me a message that comes from wherever. We are going to make a follow-up on this as a legislature. We take exception because of the fact that this is a person who is supposed to provide security to the community. So we are going to take exception. We are going to follow up and see what happens. And it should be the order of the day to be able to say, when we pick up something, let us be able to elevate it. And one of the things, maybe I should take an opportunity to present it to this youth parliament, to say, you can submit the petitions. The legislature deal with petitions, the things that the community or the society is complaining about. They can be taken to the legislature. And Honorable Yankelson, leader of official opposition, we must find a way of prioritizing those petitions, because there must be those that are urgent, that needs to be processed immediately, and there are those that can, of course, take time. Like, for example, if we receive a complaint that somebody has done this to a person, and nothing has been done, that cannot wait for the normal processes of dealing with petitions. So I just wanted to say that, remember, the legislature is the public representative of the people. So ours is to look out for the interest of the society. Let me then take this opportunity to thank you for coming here and make this day possible. Thank you, Honorable MEC Brown. As usual, I think you have imparted a lot of knowledge. I'm sure youth have learned a lot here, and I know whatever you say will appear in the transcript. It will be incorporated in the action plan that we are going to draw. And I want to thank Honorable Yankelson, the member of the Free State Legislature, who is also the leader of official opposition, for being with us, staying with us, and make sure that we go through this program. And I also want to thank those members who were here and they left because of various reasons that they had to go and take care of. And I want to thank all the sectors that might have been here and made inputs, and that those who are representing various sectors. Thank you very much. Let's work together to make the Free State a better province. I also want to thank the participants from the various political parties that are represented in the legislature. Let's continue to work together. Where it matters, let us come together and come up with a program so that we can push the interest of the youth. There will be a time when we'll have to retreat and take our corners in terms of our political parties, but there must be a time where we must be able to say, now we are here as the people of the Free State, let us push together for us to be able to see progress. Thank you to the staff of the legislature. Thank you very much. I know that you've been working even beyond your working hours to make sure that this day is a success, and as such today we managed to hold it and we are here, and thank you very much for that. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, and go well. I thank you.
Well, I have a few announcements. I'll thank myself. Well, honorable members, I have a few announcements. There's a grab and go lunch outside as we move out. And then Honorable Speaker Mezanele and Honorable Brown will go back to Ratsal. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of the business of the House today. Let me appeal to everyone to stand up and remain standing as the table in front and the Speaker leaves the House. The House is adjourned. This is Papa. Sizowaphatha, is4. Yo, I'm really nervous. So many hours, really nervous.
But you did great. You really did great. They don't know the feeling you were doing. You were really
Don't
so
make-
fast. So
Oh, thank you, my love.